This is Swarfcast. I'm Noah Graff. I am extremely honored to be with Donato Notaro, maestro of precision machining. Welcome to the show, Donato. Where are you speaking from?
I'm speaking from the northwest part of Switzerland, just a 5 minutes drive from Moutier, which is world known through the Tornos machine manufacturing company, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where I live.
And you are from Switzerland, correct?
I am Italian. I was born in Italy. Then my parents moved to Switzerland when I was 3 years old. But originally, I am Italian.
Very interesting. So, okay, let's give some people context. I'll start. I met Donato a couple months ago in February, when Graf Pinkert was brokering a beautiful multi-Swiss from Germany to a company in Massachusetts. And I needed somebody to check out the machine. Company needed somebody to check out the machine. So I called my guy, Giulio Arellano, who has been on the podcast twice. And he used to work for Tornos. And so the company arranged for him to go and check out this multi-Swiss. This is Tornos's CNC multi-spindle, 8 spindles, 26 millimeter. It's, it's a hot rod of multi-spindles. So Giulio says, if I'm going all this way, I might as well have the guy who taught me come and do this too. And I was like, well, all right, sure, why not? And then actually there was another guy who used to work for Tornos who said, hey, can I come too? And I was like, really? How many experts do I want here? But that's another story that I might have to tell sometime. Donato was the one with the stethoscope on the machine, the indicator, checking all the backlash, etc. And so I met him. He just retired from Tornos, 65. And I'll let him tell you about that. But serendipity, just met an incredible talent, knows as much about multi-spindles as many people I know, and has been around the world and back working on machines and having adventures. And I knew that he would have some wisdom for the podcast today. So now I'm going to let you speak for yourself, Donato. You came from Switzerland, and tell me, I want to get, the 5 to 10 minute bio. Tell me first, how did you start in machining?
That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to be also a photographer, but none of that. So just
why didn't you be a photographer or a pilot?
Pilot, probably I didn't have what it takes to be a pilot to begin with, because you need to be very good at school, which I was okay, but not that level, let's say. And then in our area, the biggest employer at that time was Tornos. And a lot of people were working for Tornos. And
so you were living in the French part of Switzerland.
Yep.
For
Tornos
people who don't know, Switzerland is divided into 3 parts: an Italian part, a Swiss part, or a French part, and a German part.
Yep.
But you were living in the French part.
Yeah, in the French part, but it's not far from the border with the German-speaking part, right? You see?
Okay.
The border is very intricate. So from from where I am, if I go across one mountain, I will be in a German-speaking town.
That's so interesting. Okay, so you wanted to be a pilot or a photographer, but then you decided that, this was a good thing to do in your region where you were.
That was a good thing to do, but I knew nothing about machining or Tornos machines or manufacturing whatsoever. So my father said to me, okay, you can do an apprenticeship at Tornos. To be pilot is too complicated, especially where we live. So you go and do an internship. So you have the possibility to leave the school like for a week when you are in your last 2 years of school and do an internship in a company or in few companies just to see what it's like. So then I spent 1 week in the professional center of Tornos, like the training center of Tornos. And they taught me how to turn apart or to mill apart or to file.
And what year is this?
Was in 74.
Okay.
1974. Whatever you can do learn on a machine in a week. So I learned about turning parts, drilling, milling, and I made a nice little assembly that I still have. And then I milled a cube, a dice.
Were you doing a Swiss machining or multi-spindles? Or both?
None of that. Just
none of that.
Machinist. You can nothing linked to Israel production. It's a trade.
Tool and die.
In Australia, it's close to that. In Australia, they call me a first-class machinist. So you can turn, you can mill, you can drill, grind, file, scrape, everything.
Is that the journeyman? The journeyman?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can call it journeyman, yeah. They call it tradesman in Australia. So I liked it, and my father signed me up for a 4 years apprenticeship.
Interesting.
So I have to say that in Switzerland, the apprenticeship system is very good. It's very efficient, and the level of training you get through those, it's mixed. You are in the shop and you are in the school. It's mixed. You do both. So the level of practice you get, the level of skill and technical knowledge you get, it's really unique. So Switzerland is some very good technical schools. So
and you feel this way now? Do you feel that it's really carried on the tradition?
The interest for the job shops, let's say, as far as it's turning Swiss or milling, it has lost some interest among the young people. Probably because it's not seen very well, and also there are a lot of things that younger boys would prefer to do. Just like me, not knowing anything about what machining was, I was more going towards other type of work, But there is still good schools. Yes, it's still the same. The system is good. Just that there is less young people that go into that, let's say, yes.
Yeah, well, we're going to touch on that in a little bit, but yeah, because that's a really interesting topic, because people here, they're dealing with that, but they don't understand what it's like in other countries. So anyways, you got certified as a journeyman, you trained at Tornos.
Yeah.
They were training people with the idea that they would hopefully come and work for Tornos in the future. Is that?
Yeah, there was a certain amount of young machinists that they would have liked to keep according to the amount of fresh working people they needed, fresh workforce they needed. So,
how many people were in the apprentice program?
We were but my year, exactly the number I don't remember, but just a little bit over 50 people that
And do
went
you,
through the 4 years apprenticeship. Yeah.
and do you know how many are in there now?
From my year, so last year, four of us, four of us left. We were in my year. Two of us went out and back in and back out and back into Tornos. Two of them, since day one of apprenticeship to the last day of work, they stayed with Tornos. So can you
Incredible.
imagine? Yeah, almost 50 years of working time with Tornos.
And
Yeah,
that's
among
kind of a
the
European thing, you know?
kind of, yes, yes. It's
But what
kind of
about
like that.
now? Do you know how many people are in apprenticeships now compared to then?
I don't want to say anything silly, but probably as machinists, probably 3 to 4 per year.
Oh,
Only
wow.
at Tornos. Huh? There are other companies that train apprentices too. Huh? So
True.
the thread of apprenticeship is still on, but just that not so many young people get into that.
So you did 3 or 4 years, or you did 4 years,
4, yeah,
4 years apprenticeship
yeah,
at
at Tornos.
schooled by Tornos. Okay.
Yeah.
And then what'd you do after that? You wanted to take a gap year?
Oh yeah, quickly. um, I since I dreamed to be a pilot, I liked aircrafts, so I wanted to travel, and I think I had a chance, miracles, let's say. I was able to get a visa for Australia,
Mm-hmm.
as Australia at that time was seeking a lot of machinists because the industry needed a lot of machinists. So
Interesting.
yeah, through the embassy, they even told me that they would pay for my trip. They would pay for my accommodations there until I was fluent in English and I could find my first job, which was incredible. Can you imagine that? Huh? So then I moved. I worked. I could have stayed at Tornos, of course. They would have kept me. But then I decided to see new horizons, and so after a few months of working at Tornos as a machinist, not as an apprentice anymore, I left for Australia. I got my visa and I left for Australia. I
Mm-hmm.
very easily found jobs there because
Working in
uh,
shops?
yeah, I worked in different type of shops. I can tell you a little bit later if you want to know. What was amazing is okay, Donato. So you are applying for the job on the newspaper. Okay, where are you from? Switzerland. Wow. When do you want to start? So I was like, wow. So
Yeah, well, you have
the
it's
quality of
yeah.
that is linked with the Swiss industry is just amazing.
No, I mean you have right. They have a reputation. I'm trying to
Yes. Yes.
I'm trying to it's probably like a Dominican Republic baseball player coming to the United States. Like you just figure
Yes.
like they're probably pretty good, right?
Yes. Yes.
All right, so they figured you were good, which is probably a good. I mean, you trained in Switzerland, so why wouldn't you be good? It's
Yeah,
good
because
pedigree.
the training they provide will make anybody like me, a small South Italian guy, out of a small South Italian guy, they will make a good engineer, a decent engineer. But not because I am good, just because I was trained very well.
You're
That's
being
the thing, you
humble,
see.
but you know, some people are good at being trained very well, and some people are not.
If you like it, you bite to it. If you don't really like it, if it's not something for you, then just do something else.
Would you say it was a calling for you, or just seemed like a good opportunity, or became a calling for you?
What do you mean? What became a calling? The job I
The
learned, or
calling, you realized that this was something that was meaningful and had purpose, and you could be passionate about, or it just seemed
uh,
like, oh, this is a good living, and I can get into this.
No, I didn't realize it was a good fit for me until I was able to move to Australia to begin with. Because that was so easy for me to do that, not knowing any word of English or not knowing anybody in Australia that would sponsor me. That was possible because I was a machinist. So I started to realize that it was a good fit for me according to my taste of traveling, you see, and flying
Yes.
around the world. And it was even more so after when I came back from Australia a few years later to Switzerland. So because my mother language is Italian, then I speak fluently French because I did my school in French, and on top of that I learned English. I knew 2 languages. I was a technician, so I was hired by a machine tool manufacturer, Wilhelmine Macodel, because they needed machinists that like to travel and that can speak English. So
Willemins are
that's,
pretty cool.
yeah,
Can I
they're good
can I
machines. Yeah.
explain exactly how they work? No, but I know that super fast spindle, super expensive, super in
And
demand, and
super
I'm
accurate.
super accurate. I'm always looking for one. So you worked for Willemin, and
Yeah.
what kind of machine was Willemin making back then? Like a
Back
mill?
then, mainly the main line was 5-axis machining centers and more simple machining centers and CNC lathes for
So it was
especially
CNC back in the 70s,
no.
early
So
80s?
let me put some dates to that. So I finished my apprenticeship in 1979.
Okay.
Right. By the time I got my visa for Australia, it was 1980. So I stayed in Australia for about 2 years. Then I
Okay.
returned after a land trip to throughout Southeast Asia. I
Wow.
I came back to Switzerland and then I did few jobs, part-time jobs, etc., until I found this opportunity with Wilhelmine. So I started working at Wilhelmine in 1984. And the strengths of Wilhelmine at that time was that they started directly with the numerical control. So they did not have a background of manual machines.
Interesting.
And then they didn't make mistakes some of the manufacturer made, like they adapted a CNC to an existing manual machines. They developed right away a numerically controlled base, a machine, a base for a
Interesting.
numerically controlled, which made them good
So
machines. That was one of the reasons.
so other people were trying to take their mechanical machines and put CNC slides on them
Which doesn't work.
would I mean, yeah, I mean it sort of can work, but they were just like, all right, from the ground up, we are
Yeah.
making this a CNC design. I didn't
Yeah.
realize that they were so they out of the European machines at least, they were like one of the first to do that.
No, there were others. There were probably many others that did that before them. Um, no, there are probably others that did this before them. Some of the big names I don't know right now to tell. I cannot tell you. But
But
surely amongst pioneers, yes.
okay, so you worked at Williman, and then what did you do at Williman? Applications, repairs,
Everything.
everything.
Since it was when I started, it was a smaller company than what it is now. So you had to do everything. So qualify a machine, finish to assemble it, train the customer, do his setup part, go to install it, fix it later, or do the hotline, do parts for exhibitions, go to machine tool shows. Um, it was I worked with them for 16 years, so it was 16
Wow.
years that were very fast, and I learned a lot of things with them. I learned a lot of things, yes, because we had some very complex, always complex applications, either very complex parts or very precise parts, things that probably not others wouldn't like to do. So can you do that? Yes, the boss was saying, we can do that. And then we try. And then we ran through problem. trials and errors and find ways to go around one problem or another. And then at the end of the month or two, then you nail the part right. And you learned a lot of things on the process. So it's a trial and error. You're not born with the knowledge. As you face problems and you solve them, then you learn.
Right.
This is how it works.
And that's universal. You know, you can use that
it is, yes.
with everything.
Yeah.
And so you were there, and then you went back to where it all started after that, to Tornos?
Yes. So during those 16 years at Wilhelmine, I stayed 3 years. I worked 3 years in the US for them. I was the service guy.
Nice.
On the behalf of their agent at that time. Now they are on their own. There is a Wilhelmine Macodel Incorporated, but at that time there was a very famous man on the industry in the US, Mr. Hans Berlinger. His company was Hansco Technologies, and he was selling machines mainly from Europe to the US. So he was also he had the Wilhelmine Macodel line. So I was the service engineer. So I was based in northern New Jersey. So 3 years of service applications and things like that in the US.
That would be really neat. That's really made you a worldly person, I can tell.
But before that, I used to travel in many different countries in the world, because Wilhelmine being so small at that time, they did not have a network of agents and technicians throughout the world like the bigger company do. So as a Wilhelmine technicians, we had to go all over the place wherever they were selling machines. So yeah, then those 3 years in the US, I traveled mainly in the US, but I traveled a lot. As you know, it's a big country, and
yeah, you've probably seen places in the US I haven't seen for all I know. I mean, there's a lot.
Probably, yeah. So then, yes, in 2000, I went back to the source at Tornos, yes.
And then there was a short time where you ran a production shop in the United States?
No, that was later.
So you went back to Tornos in 2000. Yeah. And what were you specializing in over there? Their decos, SAS?
They needed somebody to train customers on multi-decos.
Multi-decos.
Yeah, multi-decos. That's a beast. So I was training on multi-decos. So I did that for about a year. Then I had the opportunity to move to a department that is a technical commercial. So I was doing time studies, quotes, visiting customers, and also to stay hands-on, to not to lose the let's say the skill. I was doing some tests and setups also on the machine. So
maintenance probably.
No, just doing tests and setups on the multi-decos, and then going to exhibitions, visiting customers. So that was also a very exciting time.
What do you think of the multi-decos?
It's a strong machine. It's very good. It's the typical multi-spindle lathe. You can only turn and drill. You cannot do milling. You can have some stop spindles with clutches. It's mechanical, and then you can stop the spindle in a position to do a drilling or milling operation. But mainly, it's a multi-spindle lathe, numerically controlled. It's a strong machine. It's very fast, and within turning, it has a lot of possibilities, because you have a front drilling end where you can do drills, or you can put a live center to support longer parts. So there is a lot of application that you can run through that machine.
Yeah,
it's very, very good. Yes,
hard to get support for that these days, but yeah, it did seem like there was a time where it was pretty popular.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're a multi guy. And then, so then what happened? You've got a great journey.
Yeah, in 2005, I had an opportunity to move to the US again. That's something we liked to do. So when the opportunity
so your
showed,
family would follow you to all these places?
Yeah. Well, where I was based, yes, of course, yes. So all I have 4 children. They all speak English. They all went through the public schools in the US, which was a great experience for them. Yes,
I'm sure. I mean, it's got to have been challenging for them, always moving everywhere, but at the same time, interesting.
Yeah, interesting. And then also the schools, at least if you are in good schools, public schools, they make it easy for foreigners to get their feet wet, let's say, if I can say that. So they made special programs for my children for them to catch up quicker. So that was
And
amazing.
These were regular public schools.
Yes.
Well, they
So
must
it
have been
was just
good ones.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very good. No, they did the schools did a lot of efforts to bring our children back to level, and it took them a few months, and then they were.
You're smart. They must have had good genes.
So yes, so then 2005 I was able to go back to the US. I worked for the US subsidiary of a French company that produced parts for automotive industry.
Oof.
It's a big company that is in the valley, la Vallée de l'Arve.
Uh-huh.
So then I was in Buffalo.
That must have been quite a transition.
Yes. But again, Buffalo, they call it the city of good neighbors, and that's for a reason. We really had good neighbors, and
nice.
It was easy to live there, let's say. Yeah.
Cool. And so you were a shop manager. That's like a huge change from being, somebody that works on machines.
So it was difficult for me.
Did you go when they told you to do it? Were you just like, this is not what I've done before? Well, this is not exactly my skill set. Were you thinking that? Or did you just think, this is a really interesting opportunity, I'm going to try it?
Yeah. First, we wanted to go back to the US. Then it was a good opportunity. And then I was the type of profile they were looking for. Right. So somebody that understands the machines, that can fix production problems and machines, and that was kind of the easy part. Then the managerial part is something probably it's not within my character, let's say. So I was always kind of doing first what I knew to do best, and then I would drag along and do the other things later. So it was kind of a struggle because now I see managers totally, since I was into the shoes of a plant manager for 3 years, now I see managers with a totally different angle of view. There are people that can manage a lot of tasks in a short amount of time. They are able to take good decisions. They help when you run through different problems. They have solutions, they support, they know everything that happens, and then you have to have your eyes on the accountancy too, all of that. So for me, it was quite of a challenge.
Yeah, okay. I have sort of a interesting question I just thought of. Do you think that in a way it's an advantage to be a manager if you're less of an expert on the machines, and then but you have good people, but you're just a little don't have the urge so much to just get on them and to either micromanage or just do like in a way, less is more. Like if you just sort of have a vision and you're really good at people.
Yeah. So yes, this is the exactly. I think now after this experience, I think this is the essence of a good manager, because he understands what happens. He steps back, he sees the whole picture, and then he can direct point. Even if he doesn't know everything about the machine and machining, a good manager will understand where is the bottleneck and what to do.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it is, I think it is an advantage to be first a good manager, because then a good manager will learn everything very quickly. That's what I understood through this year, through all my career, let's say.
And maybe keep the hands out of the cookie jar a little bit and just...
Yeah, just a matter of letting others do the things, you know. You have to be able to I lost the name, to delegate. Yes, that is very important.
Yeah. No, I it's interesting how maybe knowing less is helpful. So
yes.
so then after that, which sounds like that was an adventure, you came back to Tornos and then you stayed there for a while?
Yeah, so I just had 2 years when I went back, when we returned to Switzerland from the US, because we were set to be there for 3 years. So at the end of our 3 years, I went back 2 years and I went to Schäublin Machines for 2 years. And then after that, I went back to Tornos, and I stayed with them until last year when I retired, yes.
Was Tornos always kind of like, Donato, feel free to come back whenever you want?
Provided they had enough work for them, you know, because there is always fluctuations into the machine tool industry. So, of course, I applied there at a good time. For the third time I went back there, it was a good time. They were selling machines, so they needed hands. So otherwise, of course, they cannot. They're not going to hire people, even if they like the person, if there is not enough jobs.
Talent.
So yeah.
Okay, so you're 65 now. You were working at Tornos until then, and then what happened? Drum roll.
Nothing. I'm staying active, like I was with you one day.
But Tornos, I mean, my understanding from talking to you is Tornos makes you retire when you're 65, correct?
Yeah, that's the law in Switzerland.
Everybody has to retire when they're 65,
unless some companies they will ask you to stay longer. Some companies, yes, but Tornos did not. Also, keeping in mind that when I got to the retirement age last year, it was a period also where Tornos, the machine sales were going a little bit down. So, but then we are in touch, and then they know that they asked me if they needed for some missions, if they needed me, in case they just short-handed at a certain point, if they could call upon me. So yeah, sure, I said yes. So we were still in touch, and if they need, they will let me know.
But so, yes, if people out there need an ace on Tornos, specifically multi-spindles, or can you work on other kinds of stuff too?
I put my hands a little bit on the single spindles. But
which ones?
I worked a little bit on the decos and also on the
GTs or
the 4 millimeters.
The nanos.
The nano, yeah, a little bit also, yeah. But the thing is, once you get the hang of a multi, you develop a mentality of multi. You like you like that difficulty that is linked with the multi, where you have to have fast cycle times, or you have to have a stable process, etc. So you like. So I stayed on the multis, yes. And I just want to correct you. You said an ace. If you talk to me as an ace, it's not good, because then
an ace.
You said to me, it's not too good, because I'm not an ace. I'm just a regular. Let's
You're
say
a humble ace. That's fine. I know an ace when I see one and hear about one. So that's an interesting thought here. Why do you say you working on a CNC multi-spindle you consider a much more challenging thing than working on a Swiss?
Yes, because of course on a Swiss they want production too, of course, but you have more possibilities as far as complexities. You can put more tools. You can go back with another tool to do an operation. While on a multi, you have to think process first. You have to nail the right process to make one part. And sometimes you have to change the process after you did few tests, because things doesn't work the way you predicted. So it's very difficult. You have to nail down the good process, the perfect process. Then you have to match it with the right tools, and then you have to get a cycle time that is fast, because people who spend the amount of money for a multi, they want to be sure that there is so many parts a day that comes out within the tolerance range also, because you have to have a stable process, because also the machine is outputting so many parts that you don't have time to control everything, so you will control by batch. Okay, so you need to be sure that your tools will last the length that you thought it would last, and then during the tool lifetime it produces 100% good parts. So the setting up of a process can take a lot of effort. So it's relatively fast to get the first part out of the machine. You can do it relatively fast. Programming the machine is easy. Setting it up, it's fairly easy. Then you start to make few parts until you get a good one. When you get a good one, it's only the beginning, because then you have to be able to get 8 or 6 good parts. Then you try to produce for 20 minutes, half an hour, and that's another step. Then once you get to be able to produce for, let's say, an hour without having to be without the barrel to be buried under the chips and all those things, and then no tools have broken, everything is within tolerance, then you start to see the light, and then you start to produce. And then when you start producing like several days, but that usually that's the customer when he takes over, starts to produce for a few days, then a few other things appear. So the multi machines is a machine that make you see a lot of things. You will see the difference between two inserts right away, or between two batches of material that looks like the same. They have all the same title, but there is something that is a little bit different and makes it more difficult.
What's more difficult, setting up, say, an SAS 16.6 or a BS20? These are CAM Tornos machines, or like a modern 616 multi-Swiss or 826 multi-Swiss, the CNC multis?
Well,
or is it just a different skill set?
It's a totally different skill. Yeah, it's much more difficult to set up an SAS or a BS20.
Oh, really?
I never did setups on it. I had a crash course on an SAS for 3 days many years ago, and since I never did anything on them after that, I kind of
Really?
lost everything. Oh, it's totally different. It's very difficult. No. The CNC multi is much easier to set. I would say it's not much difficult. It's not more difficult than a single spindle.
But you just said before it is harder than a single spindle.
The most difficult thing on a multi-spindle is to come up with a process. You have a sheet of paper, and then you start to put, okay, post 1, I will do this, then post 2, I will do this. Then once you have that, that's the most difficult. Programming it, it's very easy. Putting your tools in, measuring, that's no big deal. If your process is good to begin with, you will have a good result. That's the most difficult, the process, yes.
Yeah. So you think that somebody who does cam screw machines would be easier for them to go to a CNC multi than a CNC multi going to a cam screw machine?
Technically, yes. As far as knowledge of the cutting, yes. Knowledge on how to establish a process and what can happen if you machine this way or that way. But then he must not be scared of the CNC, because some people that never worked on numerically controlled machines, they might be impressed by that. And then also the way of working on a CNC multi is a little bit different than what you do on a cam operated machine, because on the cam it's basically a foam tool, you dive in and out, etc. As far as that. While on a CNC you will be using the turning ability of the machine, doing the contouring and everything. So he will have a very good knowledge of the cutting material and how to tweak in the problem, etc. Sure. If he's not too much impressed by the control and the programming, yes, he will be a good fit. Sure.
Yeah. And no offense to people who run, say, fancy single spindle lathes or Swiss, but then out of Swiss and maybe like a triple turret or a double turret CNC lathe, what do you think is harder? Or is it just different? It's just different skills.
It's just different skills, huh? It's not. I hope I didn't give you the impression that working on a single was easier than on a multi.
You kind of did, but that's okay.
So I retract a little bit. So the problems are different, yes. So, but you will have sometimes more difficult problems to solve as you start producing on a multi than you might have on a single spindle. Because if you have only 6 or 8 positions to do an entire part, if on a position what the operation you intended to do doesn't work right, then you have to switch everything around if you can. But yeah, the turret is complicated. The turret lathe also is not so easy also, because you have to think about not colliding, etc. So those kind of things. I didn't work a lot on turret lathes, a little bit.
Interesting. Yes. All right. Let's it's all fascinating. Let's go a little bit to you're in Europe, you travel all over the place. You have interesting perspective that a lot of people don't have. So everybody in the United States is not claiming, but they're complaining about can't find skilled labor. Jobs have left, work has left, etc. Now we've got tariffs. I don't know. Nobody really knows exactly what's going to happen. Give us the perspective of a European, because now, there are some tariffs there, and then there's Europe is trying to beef up their military, and there's energy and automotive, and we could probably talk for 5 hours about this. But yeah. When you think Europe, manufacturing and what's going well and what's not going well, what comes to mind? Feel free to give me the good news or bad news first.
The traditionally industrialized countries in Europe seems to me are on a decline, are on a deindustrialization course, because probably a lot of things, cost of energy and cost of labor, cost of life. Some companies migrate to the eastern countries like Poland, Czech Republic, or Romania now or so, because those are the countries where there is a cheaper labor, because there is a cheaper cost of life too, and there are also skilled people. Also outside of Europe, a little bit towards Asia, there is Turkey, which has a lot of skilled people, and they do a lot of automotive and aviation work or so.
And the labor's got to be way cheaper over there.
Yeah, that is, yes. That is. So it feels that from where I'm sitting, and now I'm not high enough to understand everything, but like Switzerland, France, Germany, Austria too is losing probably jobs. Companies that move to Eastern European countries. This is one trend, and then of course also it's difficult to compete with the cost of China.
Yeah.
Because the Chinese industry, they have such a huge scale. When they start machining, producing for their own consumers, it's already a big scale. So they have this economy of scale that it's difficult to compete. I think the companies that do good here now are the ones, as far as machine builders, are the ones that can stay into some niche type of application or industry that are too small for Asian to get in. They are not interested into getting the niche markets. But that's I'm not sure I'm right. This is
what would be an example of a niche?
Well, the jewelry, watch industry, mechanical movement watches. That's one I know.
No,
Chinese
Switzerland.
people, yeah. Chinese
That
people love the
is
Swiss
the
watches.
one thing. Yeah, that's the one thing. Like whether they're better or not somewhere else, it's you want something made in Switzerland.
As you said, whether they are, I don't think they are worse than the Swiss. Like the Chinese, they make watches that are good. The Japanese, since a lot of time, the Indians too. It's just that there is that extra touch of look and finish and the name that makes people that can afford it around the world. Yes.
Yeah.
And this is what is saving also some of the Swiss industry. Yeah, because there is a lot of jobs into the watch industry in Switzerland.
Yeah. Doesn't Rolex, don't they limit the amount of watches they make? I thought that's what they did.
They never divulgated, but I hear numbers. I hear people estimating numbers are as like a little bit over 1 million of watch per year. Usually the high-end watch manufacturers, they make very, very small amount of watches. Like some of them, they might be doing like 100,000 a year. Some they may be doing less than that, the big names.
Create scarcity.
Sorry?
To create scarcity.
Probably, yeah. And there is one example, Grebel Forcet, they make 120 Grebel Forcet. Grebel Forcet, they make 120 watches per year. I'm trying to work out the price of one of them watches, but they don't have a problem because people who buy their watches, they order it ahead of time. So
we got to listen to I did 2 podcasts with some watchmakers, one in Australia and one in the United States. The one in the United
I
States.
saw the title of the video, Manufacturing Watches in the United States. I didn't look at the video yet, but I will look at that soon.
Yeah, it's really interesting. He uses guilloche machines. Do you know what guilloche machines? It's like technology from like the 18th century, or it's...
Okay, so...
I'm probably saying the word wrong.
the watchmakers, they like to use older machineries, or at least a little bit of the older machineries that give them that the traditional feeling towards the customers.
Yeah.
But
and then they use indexes and kerns, and so it's a great combo of like...
No, indexes. I don't think indexes is not a good fit to do watch parts.
Oh, really?
Not at all. Yeah, because imagine if you compare, like on the multi, you compare index and tornos in the multi. Okay. You look the Germans. What do they do? What's the German industry? It's automotive. It's big machinery, engineering. So index is good to make parts for that type of industry. While in Switzerland, we're good at making smaller parts for watches, jewels, etc. So the tornos would be more oriented towards those type of parts, where you have very precise, very delicate parts, very precise. Then tornos is better than... So it's two different things, you see.
No, it makes total sense. I just feel like once upon a time I heard a story about Rolex using indexes, and the indexes had to be painted a certain color because everything from Rolex has to be painted a color. But it does make sense. The tiny parts, tornos, and that's their thing, right? I mean,
yeah. So that's
so that's one thing. The talent. It's so interesting how, I think it's from social media partly. People, I read or heard some poll about, if you ask baby boomers what their, baby boomers are people, born in like the 50s and 60s, what they expect a good salary for a well-off person, and they say like $100,000 a year. If you ask a Generation X, it's like 200. A millennial generation, it's a little bit more than 200. I can't remember. It might have been a little higher or lower than X. And then what if you ask the Generation Z, what do you think they say means you're well off? What do you think their salary would be?
So the Generation Z, which years more or less they were born?
I'm thinking I'd say late 90s and later.
Okay. Huh. I have no clue. I have no idea.
It's like over $500,000. They because I think they see it on social media, like people flying in jets and a whole bunch of BS,
Yeah. Yes, that is, yes. Then real life could catch you up very quickly in those cases.
Yeah, but it's nuts.
It's not, no.
But everybody here goes... Not everybody, but a lot of people here think, oh yeah, Europe, their infrastructure is better for training young people. And I think that is the truth. It is. But the question is, but you're saying there's just less of them that want to do it, even though the opportunity's there.
Yeah. There's a shift in interest in youngers. Well, for me, at the end, I was happy I did what I did, because it allowed me to discover a lot throughout the world, places that I would have never seen they existed, or things that I would have never thought they existed. So at the end, I'm happy with what I did. But
the culture was
before
different. The culture was different.
before that, I that's not what I wanted to do either. And I think it's not so much. It's not very well promoted as a type of work. Maybe, maybe they should try
Interesting.
to promote it more. Show what you can do.
Well, we could talk about all kinds of things, other things in Europe, but I mean, we'll just. Where do you see? So that they're having a talent problem, and that's really huge. Do you see what other areas are you seeing as a problem? Energy, that's a big problem, right? And the war.
Yeah, that's the cost of energy, and then the reliability of the energy is not a problem yet, but it's like
that's because of Russia.
They took some. From my point of view, they took some bad decisions.
Who?
The European leaders wanting to cut themselves from Russia. I think that was a very bad decision. A lot of people say that. There is a line of thought that say of politically correctness that say we don't want to do anything with them. But then if you look behind that, it was a mistake, I think. And probably, hopefully, they will come back. They will step back from that.
Really?
But in the meantime, a lot of damage will have been done. And I think your actual president is very smart. He understood the thing. And
I don't know. I won't. I don't go there. I'll. It's so complicated, and I just.
It's complicated, yes, and we don't know all the ropes. So.
Yeah, I mean. People can think what they want about his economic policies, but there are certain things that are absolute for sure. He changes his mind every other day, and he's a bully that pisses people off. So maybe you agree with his politics, maybe you agree with his strategies, but these are things that I will stand behind. And if people say I'm, silly, then that's their problem. So let's just wrap it up by talking about one of my favorite questions. If the serendipity, right? The sort of luck that you make in your life. What's something lucky that happened in your life that just by chance and that you took advantage of that really made, caused you to be where you are today?
I don't really believe in luck.
Mm-hmm.
I am a person of faith. So.
A person of faith.
Yeah, I think God gave me what I liked to have. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's due to any of my abilities. I wanted to travel, and Australia paid me a trip.
So that was serendipity, because that attracted you to the industry.
Then I wanted to fly, to be a pilot. I wasn't able to be a pilot. The opportunity didn't come up. But then I flew throughout my life more than someone. Most of the people would even fly in a month, probably, or I mean in a year or in a lifetime, depending who . So serendipity. Yes, I discovered a lot of cultures.
Yeah.
I didn't become richer than my friends, colleagues from Tornos who worked always in Tornos and didn't travel. we stayed to the same amount of income. But I discovered a lot of other cultures. I went through countries and I saw places that I would have never been able to see otherwise.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. That's one thing I like about my job, but your job even more than that.
Yeah, I was. I don't know if you remember the last months of the life of the Ayatollah in Iran, the Ayatollah Khomeini. He was
didn't know the conversation was going to go here. This is interesting. Go on.
If you want.
I'm totally intrigued.
He was appearing into what looked like a warehouse, and every day he was giving his the politicians, they give speeches about how things are going, the state of the country and everything. So he was doing that from a balcony, which was probably the balcony of the office of the warehouse manager. And then on the floor, there were all the journalists. So I would see it like probably once a week on TV, where he was announcing things, making speeches, etc. And then one day that I was doing some work in Tehran.
You did work in Tehran?
I went in Iran 3 times, yes, in Tehran and in Qazvin towards the west of
How long
Iran.
ago was that?
It was in the early, between the late 80s and the early 90s, just after the war with Iraq.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you were reminiscing about that when you were there?
Reminiscing about what? You mean?
About your time there when you were watching him?
Yeah, so the chief of project of the factory I was installing the machines, he asked me what I wanted to do during the weekend. And okay, let's visit Tehran. So he took me to different places in Tehran. And then I said, I would like to see where Ayatollah was living, because he died shortly before my second trip there. And he said, "Oh, that's going to be complicated." I said, "Well, that's what I would like. So let's try." So he made a few phone calls to different military and police officers. Then we were allowed into the area where the warehouse is.
Who was this guy that was able to take you there?
He was the chief of project of the factory where I was working. It was an industrial military complex, as you imagine. And he was the leader. He
must have been pretty powerful if he was able to get you in there.
Yeah. And then finally we got to a checkpoint where a military stopped us, and then there were some discussions. He went into his little office and he made a few phone calls. Then they led us through, and we were escorted into that warehouse. So
were you scared?
No. Why?
Because you're in Iran.
No, it's not. It's not what we think. I mean, the system, the government is one thing. People is another thing.
Well, I thank you so much, and then I'm sure we're going to talk a lot in the future. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the people of the world, and how can they get in touch with you? One way they can get in touch with Donato is to contact me on LinkedIn, etc. But Donato is on LinkedIn, and he'll be in the show notes. We'll have a link to him. Anyways, thank you so much, and I can't wait to talk to you later about all kinds of important stuff.
You're welcome. And when you want to go on to some more specific topics on manufacturing, let me know.
Yeah, no, we definitely could. It could be a great follow-up.